Hello everyone, welcome to the Microsoft Virtual Academy session on ITIL for IT professionals. Today we're going to be talking about knowledge management. My name is Nathan Lesnowski. I'm an architect and director of infrastructure concurrency. I'm going to be walking through knowledge management today in a way which hopefully impacts the typical IT professional's work life and makes it useful for them. So what's knowledge management all about? What's the point of this? Knowledge management is about normalizing the practices that we perform in IT. It's about making it easier for us to have universal expectations for the way we deliver solutions to our customers, for us to set universal expectations to our customers as well around what they're going to receive from IT. Knowledge management allows us to take the things that we learn and document those things in a common place. So an example of that that's become really common in the System Center and Azure communities is blogging. We use that mode of communicating knowledge very, very often because it's a way that we can document something that we learned in a way that can be repeated over and over and over and over. So, for example, if someone's trying to find something out about Service Manager or about Azure or about Intune, they'll probably go to Bing and they'll type in the search term and they'll get a result potentially coming from either a TechNet site or a wiki or a blog site that's documenting that information. What we're really interested in is facilitating that same kind of knowledge management service in our own businesses. So saying if somebody calls in about a particular type of application, let's say they call in and they're having a question about SharePoint. Well, maybe I'm a relatively new service desk professional and I may have some experience with Active Directory, but I may not have as much experience with SharePoint. I can build a knowledge article that allows for that person to have the necessary information to be able to initially serve their customer. Or if someone needs to know information that's technical to support a particular type of call. So for example, if someone's calling in to get their password reset, I probably have a typical practice I go through for resetting passwords. I may even have an automation that does it for them. Or maybe I have a way of documenting the way that I do my password resets or documenting the practices for serving my SharePoint users through an automation or through a set of knowledge articles which are combining various people's knowledge. So knowledge management allows us to be able to normalize what we do because it allows for us to document what we do. It also prepares us to execute on operational activities. So for example, when I'm launching a new application, one of the things that people sometimes forget about is they see launching the application as the end. They don't see it as the beginning. When I'm launching an application, I want to prepare to operate. I want to prepare to make that application successful by giving the people who are supporting it the right information. In many ways, the people who are using knowledge articles, the people who are using knowledge management practices, this is the front line of IT. This is the face of IT. When people call your service desk, that is the people that they're experiencing as your IT delivery engine. And if you're not giving them good information to be able to answer their customers' questions quickly, your IT experience is suffering significantly. So knowledge management in many ways arms us to be very effective at what we do. So when we talk about knowledge management, Microsoft has some very useful tools to be able to be successful with this. First, they built out Service Manager, which contains a knowledge base index. Service Manager really isn't necessarily the repository for all information on knowledge. Certainly, it's never going to be. Because there's information out on the web that I'm not going to recreate. There's information in my internal environment I'm not going to recreate. But it may be the index for the knowledge articles that are used. I also have a place where that information is stored. Some might be in Service Manager, but a lot of it might be in Microsoft SharePoint. SharePoint's a very good place to put a lot of knowledge. It's very organized in terms of organizing information. It has the idea of content types. It has the idea of organizing content around metadata. It has rich content that I can store. I can attach files. I can export that content into separate places. It allows for me to be very effective in terms of how I'm serving my customers and very effective in terms of how I'm storing that information. So when I talk about this today, I'm going to kind of combine those two technologies when I'm showing it as an example of how I can use knowledge. Is it the only example of how I can use knowledge? Certainly not. There's a lot of ways to use knowledge. This is just sort of one example of where this can be used in practice. Let's go into a demo of how I can use these elements in my own tool. Okay, So now I'm in my demo environment for System Center Service Manager. And you can see that I'm inside the context of an incident form, although this could be almost any kind of work management form. I can see that I'm dealing with an incident that was opened by Christopher. It's got a title and a description. And what I can do within here is I can do things like searching for knowledge articles. So for example, if I were to search on some question, maybe I'm interested in, I can go and search for content, and that's coming back from various search providers. So I can have that search inside of Service Manager as well as other search providers. I can also open up that article and then see content inside of it. So I can say, okay, how to determine the version of the SCSM console. That's very useful. I need that to serve my individual incident. And I can see that it's been rated relatively low, so it might not entirely be accurate. Maybe we'll kind of re-rate this after we go through and look at it. So I'll look at my the particular article, and I can see that it hasn't been tagged, but I can see that it's tied to some external content. So what's really cool about this is my knowledge article has been published, but it's using content from outside the article. So for example, this particular content is from our public blog. And on here, it's using a URL for what is the version of your Service Manager console that you're running. And you can see that it's bringing up content that's from my public blog. So I can use this information to be able to serve this customer without actually having it stored within the context of my Service Manager environment. That's how I could also use SharePoint. So SharePoint individual list items can be linked as external content to these knowledge articles to allow me to have all my knowledge information inside of SharePoint, which is a great place for it to live, so it can be used from various tools, and then also indexed by this external content. I can also store information inside the context of the internal content area. So if I didn't have external content and I wanted information to be inside of my internal content area of my knowledge article, that can be stored here as well. So for example, if I were to take a screenshot, I can paste that screenshot inside the context of my internal content area. So I can see after pasting it, there's my screenshot inside the context of the internal content area. So it allows for me to be able to have rich text inside of the knowledge article as well as rich text that's stored inside of the external content. Now I can see that this content was actually very useful at fixing it, so I'm going to re-rate this particular article. It also allows for me to be able to log analyst content and note feedback associated with that article. Now I can go back to my search. When I look at my search, I can also do things like linking that knowledge article to the individual work item. I can copy this clipboard, or I can edit the knowledge article from here. So this relationship allows for me to be able to rate and link that to my individual work item that I'm working on. And when I do that, I can then say, here's the knowledge articles that have a quantity of impacted incidents that are greater than, say, 2. Maybe I want to be able to rate which knowledge articles are then useful as a result of them being related to incidents, or those that are not so useful because they've never been used to fix an incident. So that relationship is something that can be really useful because then it allows for me to be able to understand who's writing good knowledge articles, who's not writing good knowledge articles, or what kinds of knowledge articles do I need more of, and which ones don't I need more of. Another thing that I use quite often is the relationship between the work item itself and needs knowledge article. So for example, this particular work item about Buzz Lightyear's ray gun, it appears that that ray gun is just a red light, and Buzz Lightyear didn't know that that particular ray gun was just a red light. So, maybe I need to let everybody know that, but when Buzz Lightyear calls in, he really thinks that that ray gun is an actual ray gun, but we know it's a red light. So maybe we're going to need to create a knowledge article to allow for my service desk professionals to be able to help him so they can inform Buzz that it is just a red light and he's just a toy and it's okay. So this allows for us to be able to flag certain things. In a serious pattern, it's saying, look, this thing happens a lot in our business. We need to serve our end users in a way which is going to allow for us to be able to serve them quickly. It allows for us to communicate the right information and allows for us maybe even to fix their issue very quickly. So if this is happening a lot, I can flag work items and have somebody go back through them and say, okay, let's create these knowledge articles really quickly, or even have an automation that sends out emails to people based upon the needs knowledge article being flagged. So that relationship of knowledge articles allows me to be able to manage these different things that I'm trying to perform in a structured way and ties it to individual pieces of work. All right, so now that we've shown a quick example of knowledge management inside the context of Service Manager, let's talk about what we do next. First, do you have a place where you document your service desk practices? What I'd say is knowledge management does not have to be a really challenging and complex deliverable. It's something that you simply start. You start documenting. You start relating work items to knowledge. You start arming your people with common knowledge they can use to answer questions, and it grows organically. The idea behind it is it's your own ability to search knowledge which is common for your organization and is specific to your people. Do you have a way to share that knowledge between your people, or do you have people who have knowledge but they don't have the opportunity to be able to effectively transfer that to other team members because they're too busy working on the things that you've already got them on? Knowledge management is all about preparing me to be successful at serving my customers and their business needs. Next time, we're going to take this information that we've used in service transition, change management, release management, knowledge management. We're going to take this information we've learned in service transition, and we're going to move that into service operations. Service operations is about how do I support the services once it's live. So when the service is live, when my customer ordering application is live with my customers, people are going to call in and have questions. They're going to have things that are broken. They're going to have new things they're asking for. They're going to have root causes that need to get solved. How do we serve those users? That's what we're going to deal with next time on the Microsoft Virtual Academy.